So what's your take?
My take is the party is officially over.
100% agree. The party is over.
Yes.
We're done.
We're done.
Culture, how did we get here, and where do we go? Part 1. Setting the stage. The party is officially over. Those were the words of Swedish drain-gang rapper Young Lean. It's somewhat surprising considering his life. His breakout song portrays a fictionalized version of him doing some non-fiction morphine.
Bitches come and go, bruh, but you know I stay. Bitches come and go, bruh, but you know I stay.
Even then, the statement isn't entirely correct. He also performed with Charlie XCX at her Brat tour. We'll get to her later.
Sound like me, oh, wanna be like me. Dress so fresh, so clean, rock with the dance so sweet. Weaving in the smoke, breeze, get us rubbing on the beat. Get rubbing on the beat.
But is he correct? Is the party officially over? My answer to that question is a defiant yet glum yes. From my formidable Instagram usage, I can assure you that the party is over. But why? And how did we get here? It would be too hard to comment on the entire culture, so I'll primarily stick to music culture. However, I think what I say can be applied to visual art, literature, or even food. This is the culture as I see it and what I think caused this strange shift in the mainstream. How did music get like this? It goes back to the 90s. Back then, music criticism was actually quite severe. It wasn't uncommon to see extraordinarily negative views of popular music. Pitchfork posted a video of a monkey pissing into his mouth for a 0 to 10 review of Jet. And now music critics praise the mediocre in order to fit in with the line with the mainstream. I think that's one way music has fallen apart. We've democratized the process too far. We've elevated everyone's voices to the point where nothing is true. There's that old saying, if everyone is special, no one is. That's what we've done to culture and music discourse. Everyone, no matter their breadth of knowledge, is treated the same way. It's no wonder we get hip-hop heads who have no idea who Killer Mike is.
I don't know who this is, okay? Who decided this motherfucker? Who the f*** this motherfucker? Lost Utopia! Metro Boomin!
It's no wonder we get people who glaze Playboy Cardi knowing about his domestic violence charges. It's no wonder we get slop in the mainstream, not pop. The instrument that allowed for this dilution of discourse occurred around the same time music critics started to become bastions of populism. With the advent of Napster and Spotify in the early 2000s, music became accessible. Now here's one of my main points. Accessibility has its downsides. Am I saying that accessibility is wholly bad? No, not at all, but there are problems. Accessibility decreases the purity of an art form. The harder an art form is to partake in or create, typically the easier it is for these movements to contain some level of purity. Think about museums and fine art. Now, I hate the pompous elevation of holy Western art to the point of fetishism as much as the next guy, but there is some level of control. There are the gatekeepers who decide what to show and what not to show. There are multiple levels of taste. There's a ticket you have to pay to enter a museum, there's artworks the managers decide to show, and there's the invitation to quietly examine art. Think about movies. Mainstream Hollywood movies are extraordinarily hard to make and require tons of effort from people. I think about A24 Wes Anderson films that both mainstream audiences want to watch and the elites begrudgingly admit they enjoy. Accessibility kills taste. I'll talk about this later, but think back to the 60s and 70s. Were there a fair share of horrible acts and one-hit wonders? Sure, but there were also figures like Bob Dylan who were fairly mainstream. No serious record label would pick up Bob Dylan now. Think about the Beatles. The Beatles were mainstream, but they were also pushed the envelope of music itself. What do they have in common? Music back then was harder to get. If you wanted to buy a record, you have to go to a record store. I remember Jarbo of Swans being so fascinated by hearing Stay Here on the radio that you went to buy the record the next day. There's a sense that inaccessibility makes people appreciate the art they can find more. This has contributed to a music discourse culture without nuance or expertise. Professor Sky is held at the same level as X2C. The hip-hop head, the same level as Kai Cenat, and possibly in both of those cases, the latter is held in higher regard. Another important issue we'll talk about as critics, but that will be for later. And admittedly, all of this makes me sound like an asshole. Why can't everyone just enjoy what they want to enjoy? Isn't there no objectively good or bad art? While surface level, there is some validity to these objections. My answer? I don't care. I don't care what you think and I don't care how I come off. Musical discourse is dead, so you have every right to ignore my opinion and not listen to a word I say. To you, I have no qualification to justify my hot takes, but then again, no one does. Objecting to the mainstream is important and it seems like everyone has forgotten this part. Rock music was countercultural. Punk music was countercultural. Hip-hop used to be countercultural, but now there is no counterculture. There is only a monstrous amalgamation of culture, and it is my goal in this essay to tear down the culture and explain why you should care. I know I can't convince any of you to care. The amount of time needed to care about the constantly shifting tides of the arts isn't light nor is it fun. It'll just make you an elitist. But that's kind of the point. I want to convince you to care. So what I plead to you is this. Hear me out. You don't have to, and you really have no incentive to listen to me, but this cultural moment is important. With that, we'll go to the surface level, the mainstream. Part 2. Experimental art in the mainstream. I hinted at it earlier, but one of the core questions I wanted answered is this. What happened to experimental art in the mainstream? The Beatles were experimenting with musique concrète. Lou Reed, of the quite popular band The Velvet Underground, made metal machine music. In the 80s, Talking Heads were a band people knew of. Michael Jackson began implementing drum machines. In the 90s, we had Seattle's grunge music. And in the 2000s, Radiohead experimented with electronic music and still managed to be popular. Who's our Radiohead? Black Midi? No, too prog rock coded. Black Country New Road? They might be the closest competitors, but Isaac Wood left, so we're probably not anymore. It's certainly not an American band. We don't even have bands in America. Experimental music hasn't gone anywhere. If you look hard enough, and by hard I mean not hard at all, you'll find noise music and rap group Clipping, jazz and funk and Cameron Winter's band Geese, and so on and so forth. But these aren't what the youth are listening to. They're not blasting something so loud that parents get mad at them. Where did it go? Why isn't anything strange to the mainstream anymore? I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's the commercialization of music. Maybe it's just a temporary lull. Or maybe it's our fault. Who is to blame for the standards that record labels so badly force their artists into? It's us. We're the ones on TikTok making sped up lip synced videos. We're to blame for shortening song lengths and attention spans, and it's too late. We can't fix the damage done to widespread taste. We let the culture vultures win. Whether that be Drake and his subtle racism and commodification of misogynistic rap music, or Taylor Swift using vinyl sales to prevent Billie Eilish and Charli XCX from topping charts, or letting people like Morgan Wallen pander to the middle-class rural values, we let this happen. It'd be one thing if experimentation didn't do well commercially. Sure, some experiments fail, but some are quite good. Radiohead still sells out stadiums, and people still listen to Nirvana. The point is that experimental popular music wasn't disliked then, and it's not disliked now. And honestly, to be fair, it hasn't completely disappeared. There are popular bands that do experimental things within their respective genres, but the mainstream is solely dominated by bland pop music. There is no solution to this. There is nothing that you or I as individuals can do to change the cultural landscape. Sure, there might be the occasional pioneer or breakthrough where experimentation creeps into the semi-mainstream, Sunbather, Getting Killed, Daughters, etc., but the majority of music will continue to be bland and uninspired. Pop music complexity has been studied. Marilyn Hamilton reported to the Smithsonian that pitch and rhythmic variation have decreased by 30% each. Hamilton notes that disco and hip-hop are part of the reason that melodies have seemingly become less varied. I'm not digging on hip-hop. I love melodic and non-melodic music equally. This data is still fascinating and valid to my questions on why the cultural mainstream has, in my eyes and the eyes of many others, fallen so badly. Let's take the beginning of Michael Jackson's Thriller. There's rhythm and groove, there's sonic variation and funk. Now let's take a look at the beginning of Taylor Swift's The Life of a Showgirl. I'm also a fan of this album for the record.
I heard you calling on the megaphone. You wanna see me all alone.
I'm not saying that The Fate of Ophelia is a bad song. I'm just saying that it lacks the oomph of Jackson's. I actually don't want funky riffs from Taylor Swift. I don't want her to try to make music like Michael Jackson, but that's because our cultural moment won't really allow that. There was a time when all the major pop stars were somewhat culturally transgressive. We just don't see that now. Prince's music was notoriously sexual. Madonna played with the aesthetics of racism and religious hedonism. Nirvana played with grime and danger. Even Avril Lavigne cosplayed the anti-establishment attitude of punk music. Even if the star didn't make any overtly political statements, music used to have a bit more bite to it. Take Britney Spears.
Baby, can't you see I'm calling? A guy like you should wear a warning. It's dangerous, I'm falling.
Now, am I cherry picking? Yeah, absolutely. There were plenty of horrible pop music acts made in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. What I just did with the musical complexity bit was a recap of Rick Beato's argument on why music is getting quote-unquote worse. The occasional comments I made rebuking these boomerisms are from Anthony Fantano. I told you I was chronicling online. So who's right? I side with Fantano on the fact that there is certainly good music from this era. I listen to a lot of it. I actually side with Rick Beato on the absence of phenomenal art from the mainstream. I expect more. Will some songs age better from this current era? Maybe. It's entirely possible that the cultural landscape changes and that Midnight's actually is a good album, and I'm very wrong, but I doubt it. The innovative front of the mainstream is gone and only appears every now and then. As consumers, we just have to wait for some sort of new artistic movement to capture the hearts and minds of the youth. Maybe that's some sort of punk revival or something new in its entirety. I look forward to that moment, although I doubt it will come. Part 3. Critiquing critics. I've talked about several critics already in this essay, but I just want to take some time to explain what I think of critics and their role in artistic consumption. I differ from many of my friends because I do respect critics. I like when critics are critical. I like when critics are supportive. I like when critics are critics. But as I mentioned before, we've made critics into bastions of populism. Because critics used to be viewed as too pompous, we've decreased their role. Sure, Van Gogh was never appreciated in his time, but Picasso, Matisse, Dali, and Basquiat were. Critics play an important role in shaping culture and elevating certain voices over others. By corrupting their positions, we've corrupted the arts themselves. Ryan Gillespie notes that in the current structure of the internet, criticism is easily conflated with consumerism, forcing two consequences: the relegation of judgment to mere personal preference and the potential loss of an avant-garde. This goes directly back to my point on decreasing amounts of experimentation. Do you see what I mean? Everything is connected and everything is important. So let's explain the roles that critics used to play in the 20th century. In the 1960s and 70s, they were grand outputs of criticism in mainstream news and cultural outlets, like the conservative output, The New Criterion. Eventually, the sands of time began to shift and the voices began to change. The formalism of the previous eras began to shift and change into something, well, formless. It was also around this time that critics began to critique art through certain lenses. I'm not hating on this practice at all. Examining the art from a ton of perspectives is something that should be done more, and it isn't done properly. But the foundations of some level of objectivity were certainly ruffled by this practice. Postmodernism didn't help. Once again, I like a lot of postmodern authors and ideas, but this dissolution of objective consensus stems largely from their ideas. Critics no longer subscribe to one singular lens or viewpoint. Some use psychoanalysis, others use classical philosophy, some examine through race or feminism, and some have no viewpoint at all and try to look at things quote-unquote straight on. But what about criticism now? Well, there's only one critic who seems to matter anymore in music, and that's Anthony Fantano.
People think that it starts strong, it finishes super weak. To put this album in a word, overrated. I am feeling a strong 5 to a light 6. In a word is incredibly middlebrow. I'm feeling a light to decent 5 on Yeezer down the road when she drops more stuff. I'm feeling a decent to strong 8.
I don't get the Anthony Fantano hate. I really don't. So he hated your favorite album? That's too bad. But he's allowed to do that, and respectfully, he probably knows infinitely more than you. He's listened to everything, and by everything, I mean everything. I've probably listened to like 1% of all the music he's ever consumed. Now, does experience equal knowledge? No, and I don't think he's right all the time. He gave Cemetery an 8. I vehemently disagree with him there. I think Jesus is a way better album than what he scored it, and because the internet score is completely incorrect. But here's the thing, I still respect him and what he has to say. When you listen to as much music as he does, and can articulate his opinions to the degree that he can, he's owed some baseline level of respect. And actually, it's quite a good thing that you disagree with him. Engage with discourse about it. Why is Fantano wrong? Does he not understand the music? Did he miss some crucial element of the production? Will it become influential? What do other people think about it? These are the questions that Fantano actually implores you to ask. He's always made it a policy to disagree politely with people about his various takes. There's the debate me section, and he's often on the street asking people what they think his worst take is. That's someone who wants you to voice your opinions and engage in discussions. The truth is that critics can play a very positive role in getting people interested in the arts. I would have never found Death Grips, Daughters, Swans, Chappell, George Clanton, or tons of other artists I've found through his channel if he hadn't introduced them to me. In a similar way, Susan Sontag was a driving force in getting E. Elias Merhige's 1989 film Begotten into theaters. Harold Bloom's praise of Cormac McCarthy's amazing Western novel Blood Meridian is a reason for its lasting cultural memory. Ryan Gillespie notes that throughout the 20th century, there were examples of critics helping connect audiences with the experimental, exciting, and generally avant-garde works, as well as helping create audiences for those works through the invention of grammars and concepts. We've removed the powers of critics and gatekeeping, and that's made art worse. Are there bad parts of criticism? Sure. Does it reinforce upper versus lower class conflict? Probably. Does it result in overly negative attitudes towards artists? Maybe. But have we gone too far in the opposite direction? I think we have. And also, not every critic is a force of negativity. One of my favorite music reviewers on the internet is Professor Sky. We'll discuss him later in the sections focusing on deepness and the way I believe you should consume art. But for now, I'll talk about the role I think he plays as a creator. He leaves glowing reviews of almost anything. He loves Kendrick and he loves Drake. He loves Charlie and he loves Taylor. He gives criticism, but his tagline is the always positive music review show. He encourages people to give positive feedback with his AAVA acronym, meaning amazing video as always. And also, he cares so deeply about the arts. He gets moved when D'Angelo sings about his son. He shares how he almost fell into incel-type behavior in his review of Jordy Griep's The New Sound. And he praises earnestness and positivity. You can't ask for a better force of good in artistic discourse. It helps that he's a French professor, that he cares deeply about etymology and a ton of other things that I have no idea about. But that's the attitude we should have towards art and towards critics. Critics are people too, and their opinions should hold weight when they're negative, and more importantly, when they're glowingly positive. Part 4. The new cultural battle, numbers versus the Zeitgeist. Now, I'm not going to rehash the whole great rap battle of 2024. You all know how that went down. What I'm going to be talking about is the new cultural dynamic it demonstrated, and one that I think will continue to repeat itself, but not with Drake and Kendrick. I'll get back to them, but with Taylor Swift and Charlie XCX.
Entire tour, and the artist that's about to come out chose Toronto. Wanted to surprise you, and only you. Another thing I want you to take into account, it is a Saturday night. The artist who's about to come out is one of the most in-demand artists of the moment, and could be performing absolutely anywhere. She chose you, Toronto. She chose tonight. In my opinion, I'm about to bring out one of the greatest songwriters that we have going for us right now. She's unbelievable. She's about to perform her #1 smash, boom clap. Charlie XCX is here, so
When I was a burgeoning music fan, I got into Charlie XCX's album How I'm Feeling Now. It's an amazing pandemic album and it has my favorite hyperpop song ever, Claws. Charlie XCX exists within this unique section of modern pop music. These are people who make pop music often with more artsy or dance elements thrown in. Artists that fall into a similar classification include Rebecca Black, FKA Twigs, Caroline Polachek, Yule, and Lorde. The whitest person you know loves these artists and thinks they're better than the average Taylor Swift listener. Let me get this out of the way. I like Taylor Swift's music. I'm a huge proponent of folklore. I'm a big fan of 1989 and Red. Get this, I'll even defend the life of a showgirl from time to time. But what does Taylor Swift represent? This is a difficult question to answer. For one, to her credit, she defies definition. She's not a folk singer, she's not an indie singer, she's not even a pop singer. She's not a true singer-songwriter, she's no Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, or Adrian Letner. But she does write catchy songs. She's always changing her image and oftentimes the culture moves with her. Taylor Swift has enjoyed a dominance in the pop game rivaled by very few, on the levels of prestige of Michael Jackson and Madonna. We'll get back to Taylor later. Let's get to the important part of understanding this new cultural dichotomy. Brat. Charlie XCX's Brat is the closest thing to a pop music event in my lifetime. This is like Madonna dropping Like a Virgin. Brat was reflective, self-aware, and a fun piece of dance pop history. Look at the way it was rolled out, that fluorescent green, that characteristic blurry font. 360 immediately plays into dance pop tropes and adds a unique modern edge. There are typical rave stabs, but there are also subtle 808s and trap touches. It's like a postmodern club banger. I won't get into every element of this album, but if any song encapsulated the cultural moment, it would be 360 and Sympathy is a Knife. Okay, now it's time to get back to Taylor Swift. During the 2020s, Miss Swift launched an aggressive vinyl marketing campaign. She introduced tons, and I mean tons of variants of her album Midnights. It's a marketing trick that would work for her very well, and she'd use it in subtle ways to keep people like Billie Eilish off the top spots on Billboard. Sympathy is a Knife isn't about that though. It's about the culture.
Embarrassed to have it beneath the sympathy, 'cause I couldn't even be if I tried. I'm opposite of on the other side. I feel all these feelings I've no control. Oh no, don't know why all this sympathy is just a knife. Why I can't even grip my teeth and lie. I feel all these feelings I've no control.
Charlie is painfully aware of her faults all over this album, but perhaps most importantly, this is something on a Taylor Swift diss track. Don't worry, we'll get to actual diss tracks later, but for now, this is the term I'll use. Now, Charlie knows that she is on the opposite side of Taylor musically and culturally. It's a bit weird since they used to tour together, as many online fans pointed out. What caused this shift and when, we're not exactly sure, but something happened between the two of them. And then there was this article from The Guardian titled, "Taylor Swift may have captured the charts, but Charli XCX captured the zeitgeist." That captured what I felt about their divide. Charli XCX confirmed my thoughts by showing off what the rest of the zeitgeist was. It's Yang Lean, Blade, Troye Sivan, Addison Rae, The Japanese House, and Kesha. It's not Taylor Swift. And truthfully, Charli knows that she'll never be on the same level of popularity as Taylor. Okay, I did the more unique example of this, time for the normal example. Ethel Cain versus Lana Del Rey. Just kidding, one more example before we talk about... I know that this situation is more complicated, maybe Ethel Cain weight shamed Lana Del Rey, but it's just another example of a separation in the culture. Lana Del Rey represents a version of the American dream that only exists in hindsight. Ethel Cain represents the death of the American dream. Ethel Cain's music is a lot less accessible. She's made drone projects and slowcore albums with sludge metal elements. I'm not saying that her music is for everyone, but I still think it's fairly accessible. The nuance in this one is that the culture is going directly against one another with two opposing ideas of America and its future. Okay, enough yapping, let's get into the ultimate cultural beef. Drake versus Kendrick.
These niggas talking out of their neck. Don't put no coffin out of your mouth. I'm way too paranoid for a threat. Hey, let's get it, bro. DOT, the money, power, respect. The last one is better. Say yes, a lot of goofies with a check. I mean, I hold them sentiments symbolic. My temperament bipolar, I choose violence. Okay, let's get it up. It's time for him to prove that he's a problem. Niggas clicking up, but cannot be legit. No 40 water. Tell him, yeah, get up with me. Fuck sneak diss and first person shooter. I hope they came with 3 switches. I crash out like fuck rap. Dear Adonis, I'm sorry that man is your father. Let me know. No! Why is he around? Certified lover boy, certified pedophiles. Wop. That fuck him up. Wop. I'ma do my stuff. Why you trolling like a bitch? Ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord, and it's probably A minor.
Like I said, I'm not to say things that have already been said. Let's talk about Drake for a second though. I hate Drake with a passion. He's a creep who pushes gambling on young boys. He quite literally sold his soul. If you can't see what's wrong with that, I don't know what to tell you. I truly think that if Drake's fans knew more about all the shitty stuff he's done, they would still listen to him. That's the kind of fan base Drake has, at least at the core. Hey, I like a lot of Drake songs. I even will defend some sexy songs for you and for all the dogs. But how can you not see that Drake is a culture vulture? Your GOAT hit his son. He had with a porn star from the world. Your GOAT has a team of ghostwriters? Your GOAT's best album was written by The Weeknd? Give me a break. Kendrick's no angel either. He's collaborated with Kodak Black, known sexual offender and Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. He dunks on Drake for abandoning Adonis, then collabs with Playboi Carti. He's a little self-important with all that savior imagery, and I get that his music isn't for everyone. With that being said, when did we start forgetting that he had hits before the beef? Did we forget about Backseat Freestyle? Alright. Swimming pools? Humble? DNA? But what is it about their battle that makes it so unique? It's just Charlie versus Taylor. Drake is Taylor Swift, Kendrick is Charlie. Drake is far more popular, he probably will be the greatest rapper of my generation by numbers. He revolutionized the game by fusing rap with R&B, and his ability to communicate rap to a pop audience is to be admired. Kendrick, on the other hand, is not as popular. Sure, he has hits, but he also raps on drumless beats and collaborates with Beth Gibbons of Portishead. Drake has and will always have the charts. Taylor Swift has and will always have the charts. Charlie captured the zeitgeist. Kendrick, well, he didn't. This is my biggest problem with GNX. Professor Sky tried to say that Kendrick's newest project was the closest thing to a monoculture we've had in years. I disagree. There's no monoculture. None of my friends give a shit about Kendrick. They'd rather listen to the musical equivalent of unseasoned boiled potatoes. Kendrick lost the culture war. Drake has won that. Yeah, he earned the respect of real hip-hop fans and old heads, but the youth is entertained by Drake. So Kendrick and Charlie aren't the same. But what this demonstrates is the massive cultural divide between the zeitgeist and the numbers. What we lost is the fact that sometimes these things used to be connected. Not often, but remember, Thriller is the best-selling album of all time. and now what is topping the charts consistently. Alex Warren, K-pop demon hunters, and even AI slop. So what can we do about this new division? Nothing. We have to sit and mourn the monoculture. Part 5, it's that deep, don't listen to them. I keep on hearing this term in online music discourse. It's not that deep. Malice and Pusha T didn't mean all that when they made that triple entendre. Of course, they're wrong. So dangerously wrong. Appreciation for the arts is about analysis and complexity. That isn't to say that everything is some intricate piece of history you need to research and delve into, but that's not even close to the attitude most people have about music now. Most people listen to music and watch movies the way people watch food. There obviously is an art to food. There's highbrow art, there's lowbrow art. But most people don't look into the ingredients. They don't think about the recipe, the cuisine from which it originates. Art, like food, is necessary to the human experience. When we say that a dish is just a dish, it ignores the beauty, the effort of the chef, the unique cultural experience the chef comes from. When we say that a dish is just a dish, the McDonald's burger is elevated to the status of gourmet. That's an issue to me, and it should be an issue to you too. There's no set process to art analysis, nor am I asking people to be obsessed with music and film like I am, but I am asking people to at least try. There are some rules you need to learn to understand the nuance of art. The audience is not always integral to the art. Not all art is made with the audience in mind. Radiohead's Kid A is not the same kind of album as OK Computer. It's not the dependable rock choruses with the occasional synthesizer that was OK Computer. Then Kid A flips that ratio on its head. Audiences were not central to that decision. It was about Radiohead deciding to move in a completely different direction. Art isn't always meant to be accessible. There's some art that is accessible. Caroline Polachek makes very accessible pop music, and there's an art to making something for the audience. Art takes miles. You've got to challenge yourself. I was not a huge fan of Geese for the first 5 listens, but on the 6th listen, I started hearing new sounds and appreciating the warbling growl of Cameron Winter's existential voice. Once you've got comfortable in what you consume, you stop thinking about it. In a way, you stop actually listening to it. You stop learning from consumption. You have to challenge yourself. Start looking for music knowledge. Look for different kinds of music to consume. If you love punk, listen to some country. If you love country, listen to some post-rock. If you love post-rock, listen to some boom bap. In an area where learning about music is so much easier and so much more accessible, you have a chance to learn something new. Artists and art are weird. That doesn't mean you have to be weird to make something great, but great artists are almost always strange. Obviously, if you have a history of trauma, avoid art that can conjure that trauma. Actually speak out and spread your belief on why certain art forms are exploitative. But if you believe yourself able to, try to consume some art that portrays societal taboos. It's not like I'm expecting you to go into the streets and cut off your ear like Peter Pawlenski, nor am I asking you to have members of the audience cut off your clothes. What I'm asking for you is to look further than what you're comfortable with. Accepting that artists are weird people doesn't shield them from criticism. Jodorowsky, for example, made some very controversial statements about women in the marketing and El Topo. We can critique the misogynistic attitudes exhibited through Jodorowsky's art while appreciating the sheer, Jodorowsky of it all. I made a previous video criticizing Daughters for the real-life abuse of Alexis Marshall. That's some weird art made by some, at best, weird people. We should hold Alexis accountable, but still be able to appreciate art for what it is. Question yourself, look inward. Why do you love the art you love? Is it nostalgia? Is it the way it makes you feel, or the way the world reacts to that piece? What was the artistic intent? Is that intent communicated well? When we stop asking questions about art and simply accept it for what it is, whatever that means, we kill nuance. But it also takes out some of the fun. There's a beauty to mystery to staring at a lyric so beautiful, yet it doesn't make sense. There's a beauty to looking at a painting for so long that the strokes of the brush become mere abstractions and fragmentations of light. Take your time, don't assume anything, and question everything. For a model of the way you should appreciate art, I look to Professor Sky once again. Take his very long videos breaking down Ants from Up There and the new sound. You need to look at lyrics, think about the production, and examine what art that piece is similar to. But like I said at the beginning, there's no one path to artistic analysis. You can try Professor Sky's way, you can read things through various intellectual lenses, post-structuralist, Marxist, feminist, or even an anti-racist bias. One of the best ways to make this process easier for yourself is to get involved in the criticism yourself and be surrounded by people who genuinely care about this art form you are engaging in. For music, I use Album of the Year. You'll find people and what art you should be enjoying. Part 6, the playlist. I have given a lot of vague advice on how to better partake in listening to music and enjoying art. Here, I'll give you some very concrete ways to understand modern music. You should absolutely listen to older albums from the Beach Boys, the Beatles, Pink Floyd, Nina Simone, Public Enemy, and all the other artists that are so important to understanding the modern landscape. But this is about the modern culture, so I'll curate a playlist of artists you should listen to. We'll start with pop music. Charlie XCX.
It's okay to just admit that you're jealous of me. Yeah, I heard you talk about me just so I don't ask
definitive Gen Z pop star. You know her from Boom Clap, 360, and Club Classics. Getting her start as the queen of MySpace, she found a mentor in the generational producer Sophie, may God rest her soul. Sophie and Charlie began to lay out the framework for the upcoming genre of hyperpop, aggressive synth bass, crispy modern EDM drums, and heavily auto-tuned vocals. She's also a master marketer. Look at the way she presented Brat with the fluorescent green and the blurred text. She's also the most accessible artist in this whole playlist. Probably. I'd recommend listening to Pop 2, Brat, and How I'm Feeling Now. Caroline Polachek. An important artist in the indie pop space, what makes Polachek important is her unique vocal delivery. So crystal clear and poignant across all her tracks. Polachek has managed to assemble an amazing catalog in the late 2010s to the 2020s. She embodies a variety of aesthetics in her work, but is primarily synth-pop with a forward-thinking cutting edge from her collaborators, most notably A.G. Cook. I recommend Desire, I Want to Turn Into, and Pang. FKA Twigs. Admittedly, I'm trying to get into FKA Twigs more, but there's no denying her influence in dance pop. Her most recent projects have brought back an authentic artistic vision of techno not seen in a long time. Think of her recent albums as the darker, sexier cousin of Charlie's Brat. I recommend Eusexua and Eusexua Afterglow. 100 Gex. At first they seem like a joke, and to a certain extent the Gex are a funny collective. Dylan Brady and Laura Lace took the framework of Charlie and Sophie and mutated it into something so extreme it's comical. It is, however, folly to dismiss their music as a joke. It's also extremely hard, and they're making some genuinely innovative music by just distorting everything to the max. They definitely beat out, say, Too Slimy. Dylan Brady can produce normal stuff as well. I recommend 1000 Gex and 10,000 Gex. Underscores.
If you don't know me, and I don't know you, then this might be something we should do. It's all on the line for me, it could ruin everything. You could make me somebody new, I just can't do it.
It was hard picking between Underscores and Jane Remover since I think they both make great music. Check both of them out. I chose Underscores because they make truly innovative hyperpop by ironically incorporating older styles like rock, music, and Dance Revolution, era EDM. She produces everything and writes everything, but she also exhibits some more traditional talents in instrumentation. Her music is also more accessible than Jane's, which can be described by some as taking a seat on a soundboard. I recommend Wallsocket and Boneyard, aka Fearmonger. Ethel Cain. I know that all the artists I just described are quite synth-heavy, but Ethel Cain is the opposite. Her music is slow, grueling, and deeply personal. Cain's music explores the trauma of growing up transgender in the American South and the crossover of religious fervor and self-harm. It's a modern reiteration of the Gothic Southern style. As previously discussed, her music is the antithesis to Del Rey's Americana. It's real and harsh, a reflection of the harshness of American culture and a difficult but necessary pill to swallow. I recommend Willoughby Tucker, I'll Always Love You, and Perverts. Her other stuff is very good as well, but those are my personal favorites. Eyes.
Can't reach me yet, I'm not a type, baby. Please I don't wait, too bright can be a bad kind. Don't you know, pretty treats, dirty streets won't be long, yeah.
A lesser known contender, but my personal favorite pop star, hailing from South Korea, Eyes makes songs characterized by strong Y2K aesthetics of cutting-edge minimalism. She only releases EPs, but she's had some crossover in the mainstream with her work with Pink Pantheress. I recommended Soft Error, Loop, and I Did. Rock music. Black Midi. Black Midi hails from the music scene of the Windmill. The Windmill is a group of British bands influenced by prog rock, no wave, and jazz. Black Midi might be the hardest to get into, but they're very good. They make some very technical music, although their name has no relation with the Japanese classical music genre it's related to. They're more like King Crimson and at times a Primus than anything else. I recommend Schlagenheim and Hellfire as well as Jody's solo work, The New Sound. Black Country New Road. Another alumni of the Windmill scene, Black Country New Road is a band that makes pop rock influenced by classical, chamber music, and jazz music. They've made no wave at times, but they also hold close to their math rock core. Here you'll also find some of the most powerful modern vocal performances in Isaac Wood. I recommend For the First Time and Answer From Up There. Geese. I used to hate Geese, and honestly, Cameron Winter's vocal delivery isn't for everyone. But once I got it, I got it. I connected with Winter's postmodern drawl and growl, as well as the band's incredible talent and playing. Certainly one of the best art rock bands of the current moment. They are arguably bringing rock music back to the forefront. I recommend Getting Killed, as well as Cameron Winter's solo work, Heavy Metal. Turnstile. I know that this choice might be controversial, but I love Turnstile. I think that instead of approaching them as a hardcore punk band, view them as stadium rock. Their music has transcended genre. They're not a hardcore band, but they're not really a synth-pop group either. They still make loud rock music just with a polished touch. They use their platform to support Baltimore's hardcore scene, and famously had a free concert to hype up the release of their newest album. I recommend Never Enough, Glow On, and Step to Rhythm. Chat Pile. One of the best American metal bands right now, Chet Powell fused death and doom metal with post-rock to make something tight and effective. Equally transgressive and beautiful, their music is decently accessible for the genres they occupy. I recommend Cool World. Death Heaven. Man, I'm making enemies with these choices. Like Turnstile, I don't look at them from the genres many assign them to. They're not a black metal band to me. They're a noise rock band. Every one of their albums incorporates shoegaze to some extent, and some albums are almost all shoegaze. I fell in love with their music through their debut, but they have continued to ignore criticism and push forward, making the kind of music they want to make. I know that for people who truly love black metal, Death Heaven is a tough pill to swallow, but I think that they're a necessary one. Besides, if you want people to start enjoying black metal and get into DSBM or anything else, Death Heaven is a good place to start. I recommend Sunbather and Lonely People with Power. Maruja.
I'm twisted, the darkness got me lifted. Human nature's venomous, that's something that I'm gifted. You're on a hit list, look over your shoulder. Face is smiling purple as the evil makers colder.
I knew we're entering the windmill scene. Maruja makes post-punk / post-rock music that can only be described as generational. Their music is powerful and contains heavy emotion. Characterized by strong saxophone lines and layers of powerful guitars, Maruja picked up where Swans left off. Their music is also very political, but they approach rebellion with a unique humanism of supporting the common man despite the differences amongst us. I recommend Pain to Power and Calm as well. Rap / hip-hop. Billy Woods.
Excuse me, on those drinks? It's 211 on the daiquiris. It ruins the whole day when my baby mother mad at me. Spliff could probably jump your car battery. Birds of paradise in the menagerie. A single death is a tragedy, but
more than a rapper, Woods is an enigma. He doesn't show his face, his shows prohibit cell phones, and his music is fused with both futurism and retro sentiments. He has a great taste for beats and collaborators, and he often brings together many portions of the gritty and underground for one definitive statement. I recommend his newest album, It's a Slur I Can't Say It, and Maps. His work with Elucid as Arm & Hammer is pretty good too. Westside Gun.
Hey yo! Hey yo, rockin' on Sakai in the 911 soft top. Hopped out, big drum on it, had to sort of mouthpiece. The name's West, but I'm from the East. Hey yo!
Member of the Griselda Collective, they deserve their own video. Westside Gun is characterized by his high-pitched growl and his unusual delivery of ad-libs. He also has some of the most clever bars in the game right now, complemented by heavy boom-bap beats covered in rhyme. At the same time, his aesthetic screams excess power and money. I recommend Pray for Paris and Hitler Wears Hermes 8 Side B. Danny Brown.
I'm like cool brick with 2 bricks and hoes on the strap. Off a 2-piece and 2 big, I flick and I preach. About how I'ma get this money out here up in the streets.
An artist constantly undergoing sonic change and evolution, Danny Brown has been at this game for a while. He even has a song with 2010s era Eminem. Brown used to make music fused with drug usage, but now makes music reflecting sobriety. An extraordinarily powerful example of an artist changing and reflecting the harshness of recovery in their art. There are so many great choices from his catalog displaying all sorts of moods and stages in his life. I'll choose my 2 favorites, those being Stardust and Atrocity Exhibition. JPEG Mafia.
I hear you went down, 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 down. I hear you went down. I hear you went down, 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 down. Did you go down?
A new school of industrial hip-hop taking notes from Kanye's Yeezus and Death Grips The Money Store. JPEG Mafia comes from Baltimore, now residing in LA. His music is hyper-modern, frenetic, and chaotic. At times, it can also be beautiful and soft. An artist who is unpredictable and at times a bit annoying. He's also a producer and makes almost everything he raps on. He's noted for pushing the genre to new sonic potentials and curating one of the best catalogs in rap right now. There are so many albums, some of which come from his alias Devon Hendrix, but I'll recommend the 2 most essential, as well as his collab with Danny Brown. Those being Offline, I Lay Down My Life For You, and Scared in the Hose. Blade.
I'm drunk and I quit, wanting to kill. Even if it's God's will, I just can't chill.
I was conflicted putting Blade in the rap category, as some believe he creates pop music. However, his aesthetic is certainly influenced by rap. At first, he occupied a niche space of the Swedish/Nordic underground, but he has become a prominent part of the lower mainstream alongside people like Jan Lean. His music is less harsh and more influenced by Kanye's 808 and Heartbreaks than anything else. In his music, you'll find drug usage, depression, and themes of mental health. His music isn't one of traditional hip-hop, nor has he tried to embody the masculine tropes of gangster rap. I recommend his album with Echo 2K, Crest, as well as his solo album, Cold Visions. Little Sims.
The kingdom's on fire, the blood of a young messiah. I see sinners in a church, I see sinners in a church. Sometimes I might be introvert, there's a war inside. I hear battle cries, mothers burying sons, young boys playing with guns. The devil's a liar, fulfill your wildest desires. Now I don't wanna be the one to doctor this, but if you can't feel pain, then you can't feel the opposite.
One of my favorite British rappers of all time, she raps with a unique level of wordcraft that I'll put on a similar level to Kendrick Lamar. At times her music is bold and unapologetic, but at the same time it's introspective and reflective. I recommend her albums No Thank You and Sometimes I Might Be Introvert. Doechii.
Hey, I thought it was all over.
What's up, Doechii? Hey, girl. You know, it's been a little minute since you and I have had a chat.
Has it really?
Probably since, like, your last EP, All the Places You'll Go.
Oh, wow. It's been a minute, yeah.
I've been getting some calls. People are a little bit worried about you.
Not worried.
And I know that I was kind of that outlet for you, so...
You were.
Why don't you just tell me what's been going on?
Okay.
Having her breakout with her most recent mixtape, Doechii could become an iconoclast figure in hip-hop. Being a black woman, she has experienced some racism and sexism in being accepted by the rap community, but I believe time will show her music to be important, fun, and interesting. Her vocal delivery, as exhibited in her Tiny Desk performance, is unmatched in the game right now, so keep an open mind and listen to Alligator Bites Don't Heal. Now, there are certainly some omissions, both of artists and genre, but I try to keep it short and sweet and give you a good point from which to launch. You can start expanding your taste with dance music, neoclassical darkwave, post-metal, or any other genre you choose. Hopefully this playlist of artists and their respective albums help you comprehend the artistic landscape of modernity. Part 7, the path forward. I've painted a bleak picture. I can see how easy it is to be hopeless. Mainstream art is becoming worse and worse. We've gone further and further into the deep end. And yet the message I want to bestow is one of hope. There is still potential, there is still power in art. We are at a unique point in history. Things are changing, technology is progressing at a rate that can only be compared to the Industrial Revolution. These are moments that will be discussed in history books. So far, I've told you that the party is over. We've killed the culture by killing our intellectuals, pushing the experimental to the side, and dividing our culture into the zeitgeist and the mainstream. What can we do? The divisions are there. We can't do anything more. Maybe you're right. Maybe our world is fully set. Maybe we can't change anything. But I don't like to think like that. In a world that is so empty, so filled with suffering, there seems to be no solution. I don't have the answers. There's no antibiotic to the disease of suffering. But I have a potential remedy. In a world filled with such monotonous, widespread sadness, there is a powerful antidote. In the arts, we can find radical joy. That is what we need in our current cultural moment. Widespread, radical joy. Go out there, create something. Now is not the time to sit down and watch as history occurs before your eyes. Now is the time to participate in history. Take to the streets and rally. Pick up a paintbrush, or the camera, or the microphone, or even learn to dance, but choose something and push yourself to love it. Put effort into it and put everything you have into chasing the abstract idea of perfection. Art might not be the only thing that we need, but it is certainly something we need to pursue. The beautiful is all around us. Embrace the falling leaves of autumn. Embrace the emotion and the tears of grieving, and the shouts of the joyful. There is something that needs to be captured and transformed there. That is one of the gifts of the human condition. We have such a capacity to feel and empathize. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.